This video is to demonstrate how to lay out a one-point grid and then how to apply it to more complicated concepts. So I have started a drawing that's in architectural units with limits set to 100 feet, and I have these layers: a zero layer, a construction layer, edge layer, a grid layer, HL for horizon line, overhead for hidden lines, and VP for vanishing point. I'm going to start with the edge layer, and I'm going to create a box or a rectangle rather, that represents the back edge of a room. So if we're looking down at it on plan, and our room is, let's say, 12 feet by 24 feet, and we're standing right here in the room, there's our heads, we're looking at the back of the wall. I want to generate a one-point perspective that demonstrates what that would look like. So this would be the center of our head, would be the center point here. This is where the vanishing point would be located based on the position in the room. If we draw a line from the center of the head and use an angle of 30 degrees on both sides, that is what's called our cone of vision. We have a 60-degree angle cone of vision. As long as the two corners of your room are within that angle, then your one-point perspective will come out pretty well. And then this back wall right here, we're going to imagine is our picture plane. So we're going to put that line in there. That's representing the picture plane. So this is us as people standing in the room, looking down on our heads. Straight across from our head is the center of vision, and that's also going to be where the vanishing point's located. This is our cone of vision. So the width of the room is 12 feet. Let's say the height of the walls are 8 feet. So I'm going to, over here off to the side, create a rectangle that's the same width and height of that back wall. So this is a 12-foot by 8-foot back wall that we're looking at. And if we look at where we're located in here, I'm going to just copy this line. So it's the center of our position center. Let's actually put ourselves right in the middle of this so that we can see what happens when we position our grid right in the center. So we're just going to put our center line right down the center of the room, and then our horizon line is going to be based on whatever our height is. So an average height is 5 feet. I happen to be 5'7". My eyes are probably at around 5'6", 5'4". So I'm going to draw a line up from here, 5 feet, 5 inches, and that's my horizon line. Right where the center of vision and horizon line cross will end up being where your vanishing point is. So I'm going to switch to the VP layer and type in PO for point and place a point. I'm going to change my DDP type to something that will allow me to be able to see that vanishing point. Alright, from there, the way that a one-point perspective works is anything that is parallel to the bottom edge or the sides of this building, the back edge of the wall, should go in the same direction it's going in. So anything that's parallel, or any edge that you can see going from left to right or up or down in this room, will be parallel to these lines. Anything that is going away from us, so either from this corner and for instance the top edge of the wall, should go through the vanishing point. The bottom edge of the floor here and the wall should go through the vanishing point. So we're going to start to lay out these wall lines by putting those extra lines in. So let me just put some things on the right layer. We can get rid of this center line here. So that's just how we figured out where the vanishing point was. So this is horizon line. This is the edge of the wall in the back, and I'm going to start to put in the rest of the walls in here by going through the vanishing point. Let's actually use the ray command, and I can pick through each corner. Now if we trim those original lines away where they came from, now we're starting to see this is the back edge of the room, this is the right side wall, the left side wall, the ceiling, and the floor. And so we're starting to develop a room shape in here. Now we want to define kind of where we are in the room. So let's take a look at where we are here, and um, do a distance, for instance, from the center of the circle that's representing our heads to the front end. And we're about 16 feet away from the back wall. So that means we want to be able to see about 16 feet increments from here to here. When you're laying out a perspective of any kind, things as they get further away from you will get closer together, and as they come closer to you will get further apart. So one of the ways that we can control how we provide that distance is if we measure something that we know. So this back plane here, remember I said it's along the picture plane? If we imagine the picture plane is equal to whatever we're looking at in its true shape, that means I can use this line here and this line here to measure equal distances along those points. So I'm going to use the divide command. I'm going to select the rectangle and divide the rectangle into, actually let's use the measure command for instead. That makes a lot more sense. So if I measure the rectangle and I place a segment every 12 inches, we're going to have points every 12 inches along the outside edge of the building line. And I'm going to put all of these on the construction layer because I do not want those to plot. I just want them there as a reference. So put those on the construction layer, and I may not want them to move it either, so you can put on a layer that's locked or frozen or anything. We'll just put those there for now just to use as a reference. Now, making sure my O-snaps include nodes, which it does, I'm going to start by drawing a couple of grid lines. These grid lines are going to go through each one of these points. So if I use the ray again, ray command, go from the node and go through each one of these points that I created on the outside edge of my back wall, that's going to give me my height, my width, information on all four sides of the room. So trim to this interior edge here and get rid of all those lines. Let's freeze the construction layer for a minute. Alright, so what this is showing us now, these black lines are representing the edge of the room, and these lines here are showing me 1 foot increments across. And these are 1 foot increments going up the wall and 1 foot increments going across the ceiling and so on. And this, remember, is our horizon line, and that's actually one of the 1 foot increments that we have. Oh no, I put myself at 5 foot 5 inches, so it shouldn't be on one of those lines. It's in between the 5 and the 6 foot line here. All right, now we want to figure out how to get some depth in here, and depth is a little bit trickier. What you want to do is let's take this edge here and assume that the building is going to be well, we're going to see 16 feet of the building. So if I draw a line from the node here, or if I say point, and I track from my node 16 feet, you see that puts a node on the horizon line 16 feet away from the first node that I have. Now from that node, if I draw a line through the corner, and then make sure that this line that I just drew gets extended to this edge over here. You see where that hits the edge is right here at this corner. Now what I'm going to do is draw a line, or let's use an X line in this case. And I want to draw a horizontal X line. And I want it to go through this point, this point, this point. Notice that I'm putting a horizontal line everywhere that I happen to be intersecting. We want to make sure we get the intersection symbol. There we go. Each one of these lines that we started off with, that diagonal that I drew, is drawn through each one of those intersections. So we're going to trim those lines on either side. And now we have a floor grid. Whoops, didn't quite trim those to the right spot. Should be trimmed to the edge there. There. So that's representing our floor grid. Now that we have these laid out on our floor grid, we don't really need this diagonal line anymore. We can get rid of it, and all I need to do now is trace from here. I want to go straight up until I hit this edge, then go across until I hit the edge on the opposite side, and then straight down. And I would keep repeating that until I've got all of my grid laid out on all 4 sides of my room. And so I got ahead a little bit here to show you how that's going to look. So now we actually have that illusion of some depth here. It looks like that wall is off in the background, and these grid lines represent a 1 foot increment from that wall as it comes towards us. Notice that the distances between those lines gets a little bit larger as it gets closer to us. And this is probably about the maximum I'd want to put myself away from that back wall before it starts to really get distorted. But we can actually zoom in a little bit closer, and you can see that as you cut off more and more of those really exaggerated or elongated grid, you'll notice the grid kind of starts to get distorted as you go further and further out. But these types of grids, if you have a few of them laid out like this, can be really useful to do some quick drawings with. So I'd like you to create a grid like this one. You can either do it by hand or in AutoCAD. It is a good idea to go ahead and set up some layers that allow you to print these lines at much lighter line weights for the grid and a slightly darker line weight for the outside edges of the building. That way when you start sketching, you can sketch over these lighter lines and still see what you're doing pretty well with the sketches that you apply to the room. We'll be adding little objects and furniture into these spaces so that you get used to using a one-point grid. In the next one-point grid example, I'm going to take this a step further, and we're going to lay out a one-point grid for something that's not conventional in size, not just a rectangle.